Yo, what is good, guys? Welcome back to another video. We have a lot to cover on the stock market overall. Some good stocks that are moving pretty well. That Walmart trade that I gave you guys on Monday that is doing very, very well. And some other stocks that are doing very, very well. Just like the Apple one that I gave you guys at 200 and just call options that are doing very, very well. We have a lot to cover. We're going to cover some news, give you guys some supports and resistance, and then end the video on some plays. And we're going to talk a little bit more about September and some better plays that we can make in September overall. So let's get started. So first off, some good news we got to talk about with Apple and Google. Google up 10% for the day. Just keep on rallying and rallying like a lot. I didn't make a video yesterday, so we do got to cover the Google's news. So if you guys already had that, you guys can just skip ahead in the video if you guys want. But with that being said, man, we are looking pretty good with the stock market overall. Chips are kind of behind, but we do have Broadcom's earnings today. So we have to talk a little bit more about that and how that can move other chip stocks like Nvidia and honestly the overall market too. But with that being said, man, the SPY is looking pretty decent. We're almost near all-time highs once again. We did have that a decent sell-off, honestly, but we see decent sell-offs and we see it gap back up relatively fast. Like we had this sell off everybody was scared about, and then we rallied in one day. That is insane. And now we're kind of getting the rally back up. So if you guys do have those long-term call options, good job, honestly. But with that being said, I was expecting the little V-shaped recovery by the 6th, but we got it a little bit earlier. And honestly, with the rate cuts, that can move the September bearish sentiment up and maybe make a green September overall if we do get rate cuts. And right now, we're at a 95% chance of a rate cut in September. So honestly, man, this is pretty good news overall. First link in the description below, I have a bunch of courses to help you guys become more profitable. So go check out these courses with that code down below. You guys can get 50% off. But one thing that we do have to talk about is gold and gold, how gold is moving overall and how you can make a decent amount of money off of gold. Honestly, man, gold has been rallying for honestly a while. Sometimes it'll move up and down like we've seen for a couple of weeks, but we just made a breakout past all-time highs, past that 3,500, and we're kind of holding above that right now. We might start itching below it a little bit more as tech starts buying back, but we do kind of see a little bit of, people buying more Apple because Apple has been undervalued for a long, long time. And honestly, man, now we're back almost like we're at 240 now. So next level is going to be at 250 to that 260 to watch for Apple. And we have the new iPhones coming out, and we have some good news overall, especially with that Google deal that just dropped. That brought Apple up like a decent amount. It brought it up like $10 when that news came out. And honestly, man, Apple is just looking good for the long term and the short term. So if you guys did get in when I told you guys to get in at that $200 level, you guys are up $38 per share. And honestly, man, it could potentially get up to like 40 to 50 to $60 a share. Apple was one that was lagging behind since those April lows, and honestly just lagging behind the overall stock market as we were hitting all-time highs. But now, man, Apple is looking pretty good. So we have a lot to talk about with Apple with some plays a little bit later. So keep that in mind. But Apple is looking good and gold is looking even better. But gold has been above the 50-day moving average for more than 440 trading days, which makes it the 6th largest streak in the last 50 years. That is insane. But we have been above that 50-day moving average, and gold just has been looking good in the short term. If you guys do want to trade some options on it, you guys can look at GLD and just have your long term on gold, because gold is a safe asset right now with the dollar falling consistently. People don't know where to put their money at anymore because people don't really trust the dollar anymore, and people are like, everybody, all countries is putting their money into gold right now, and gold is just looking relatively good. And if we look at the dollar versus gold index, man, this is honestly parabolic. But if we look at the dollar and gold ratio chart, we can see that traders are buying up gold, and we see the dollar and gold falling off a cliff, and this shows that people are losing trust in the dollar, and it makes people fall to gold to invest in it, making it the global safe haven now. And this chart is showing a big shift in people's money, and when we see these big dips, it is not good like we have one forming right now. And the last time we seen this was a dot-com bubble and other bad times for the market overall, and it brought the market down a big amount. So we are kind of forming one of these right now that we've seen before, and it kind of starts right around here, and we're kind of almost there. So keep this in mind overall. This isn't really looking too good, but the yields aren't, like, honestly just aren't looking too good. A lot of people are saying AI bubble and stuff like that. with the job numbers and stuff like that, we aren't really looking too good for the economy. So keep that in mind. We might have a bigger sell off than we expect coming out soon. But honestly, maybe not in the next couple of months, maybe not even in the next couple of years, but we might see a big fat sell off. We've been in like a bull market for like 13 years or something like that. So that isn't really good for the overall stock market. But honestly, it's not a time to be scared right now. But gold is a good one to invest in. If you guys want to get some quick plays, early news, and everything that you guys need to know about the stock market, literally, I post throughout the day, throughout the trading day, give you guys the news as early as I can get it. Check out my X account, NextGen Wealth Tips. You guys will not disappoint. So let's dive deeper into some earnings. So we're going to be talking more about how other earnings went in a couple of seconds, but we do have Broadcom today after close, Lululemon and some other ones, but I think the biggest one is going to be Broadcom. And tomorrow we have ABM. I don't even know what that is, but if you guys are invested in that, that could be for you guys. You guys can screenshot this list to have. But this is the earnings overall. Not really anything major, just Broadcom. Diving a little bit deeper into job numbers and stuff like that. So basically, man, yesterday, we did have job openings and it came in at 7.2 million. And there are some bad things because there was something big. We had some bad data and basically showing that there are more people unemployed than jobs currently available on the market. So that didn't really look too good, but that did bring a big spike into the stocks overall. But we did have a sell off after that. And then Thursday today, we do have ADP employment, initial jobless claims can move the market, productivity, trade deficit, and then PMI. So all of this comes in like 30 minutes or an hour before market opens, and then 15 minutes after market opens, we do got the PMI. 30 minutes, we have the ISM services and just some speeches basically. So honestly, I think the initial jobless claims can initially move the market, but tomorrow is going to be a little bit bigger because everybody is waiting on the big job numbers on Friday. This is big. It's going to have a huge role on rate cut odds overall. And in 2 weeks, we are going to be having that meeting overall. And like I said before, right now we have a 95% chance of a rate cut during this meeting, but the job numbers can change this. So keep that in mind on Friday and keep the Fed fund futures on your radar on Friday when these numbers come out, because this can make a move with the stock market. But we are at a 95% chance. I think like a week or two ago, we were at like 85. And then, a couple weeks ago before that, we were at like 65 or 75 or something like that. But it is looking pretty good right now for a rate cut in September. But overall, going back on gold, can be a great play for your long term and can be made easily, basically, especially if we see gold keep on going up higher. But how gold has been moving, it's just been going in an uptrend. And honestly, if you can have a long-term call option and or just have some shares, you guys can make a decent amount of money. My recommendation is GLD, and it's basically ETF that moves with gold. You guys can play option plays on this, but I'm personally watching GLD myself, and you can make a decent play on this. And especially once those rate cuts come out, we might see a big dip, and you guys can play it to the downside too if people start buying into tech and other stocks as well. So honestly, just keep GLD on your radar. You guys can make a decent amount of money with that. But talking back more on Google. So Google was facing an antitrust case over its search business, and a federal judge just ruled that they don't need to sell Chrome and they can keep on paying other companies to put Chrome and Google on their devices overall. We see a big deal with Apple, and it's basically like a $20 billion deal every single year for Apple to basically have Google naturally on their devices, which is kind of insane. But honestly, you can see how this case is, but you can see how Google just wins cases basically. But this has been a case that's been going on for years, and this just brought in some bullish sentiment overall. But this is good for Google and Apple. Both stocks are getting a good pump off of this. We see Google up 10% yesterday, Apple up like 3 or 4, which is pretty good. Apple went up like $10. If you guys had an option play, you guys would have been pumped. If you guys were in puts, you guys are probably sad. So I'm sorry for anybody that are in any puts in Apple while that was going on. But it is a great pump for both of these stocks, brought some bullish sentiment in the overall market as well, bringing up the futures overnight. And for the past few years, this was a big fear for a lot of investors. So this can help Google look a little bit better, and we're at all-time highs overall with Google. So honestly, Google is one stock that I'm personally watching and having on my radar overall, because honestly, this is good news, and this was kind of holding Google back. So right now we're at 230, and it's honestly insane. We're at 208 230 now. That is insane. If you guys had a call option, this would have been parabolic for you. With that being said, man, I'm going to be watching a continuation to the upside for Google. So next level that I'm watching is going to be at 240, 245, and then that 250 level to the upside. And then if we do start inching downwards, I'm going to be looking at that first level of 223.5. If we fall below that, 220, 215. But honestly, I don't think Google can fall down unless the overall stock market falls down. So honestly, right now, Google and Apple are the two pump stocks to watch. And honestly, I'm looking for a continuation to the upside for both of these. We also see a big shift with the fear and greed index. I think on Monday we were at 63 or something like that, and that was still greed. But now we're at neutral. But we're kind of itching towards the greed a little bit more. So keep this in mind because we can potentially get back to the greed and or start going to the fear. And that's when everybody starts selling off. Also have the VIX index on your radar. You can make a decent amount of money, especially once we start selling off. You can buy a call option on the VIX and make a decent amount of money short term. But let's talk a little bit more about news and Apple and how earnings went. So what is happening with Apple? Apple is gearing up to launch the iPhone 17 lineup in 2025 with some big changes expected. The shape up, they rumored to be dropping the Plus model and introducing a new super thin iPhone 17 Air. All models are expected to get a smoother ProMotion display. The headwinds, despite the new models, Apple is facing challenges. There's concerns about potential price increases and whether the new features will be enough to convince a lot of people to upgrade, especially with the rumors of a foldable iPhone coming in the year after. So people might be waiting to get the basically the iPhone, the foldable iPhone the year after, which is next year. And as you can see, the iPhone 17 or the iPhone 16 numbers that came out, basically a way more people upgraded to the iPhone 16 than previous models like the 15 or the 14. And with that being said, if you upgraded to the iPhone 16, why are you going to get the iPhone 17? So it's basically showing like numbers might not be as good as expected. And honestly, if you upgrade to the iPhone 16, why are you going to get the iPhone 17? And also with the price increase, are you really going to upgrade? You can just be like, all right, I can have my phone for another year. And for the people that are foldables, love foldables. I personally love foldables, and I wanted to get the new iPhone foldable. I got the Samsung one. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty nice. But with that being said, man, I am personally waiting for the iPhone foldable too. So people might be like, I'm not gonna get the iPhone 17 because I want the foldable next year. So honestly, man, iPhone 17 numbers might be a little bit worsening, but they have been adding more models, like we said before, the iPhone 17 Air. So honestly, they are kind of trying to change up their lineups, have some better phones, actually change things this time. So I'm very pumped to see what these iPhones will look like though when they do come out. But some other news, man. Macy's stock did soar after sales rise by most in 3 years. Company plans more store closures, though. We did see their stock soar after this. Salesforce weak quarterly revenue forecast signals lagging AI monetization. Honestly, if you guys look at like Gemini, ChatGPT, or anything like that, they don't really have any monetization yet. It's basically just members only. So if you guys do get the plus, that's basically how they make their money. And honestly, I think every single time that you do like a prompt, it's like turning on a toaster oven or something like that. So it is a lot of power for a lot of needs. And honestly, the monetization isn't really that good right now. But honestly, the memberships is what's really holding it up. American Eagle expects sale boost in fall season from Sweeney and ad campaigns overall. So we can see how this is if you guys are into American Eagle, the stock. Figma first earnings report after stellar debut underwhelms investors overall. If you guys don't know Figma, it was basically a stock that just came out. Basically, a lot of people pumped it up, but then it sold off a decent amount, and the earnings did not really impress investors overall. And then we do have Apple plans AI-powered web search tool for Siri to rival OpenAI Perplexity. So basically, man, we're finally seeing some AI get into Apple too, so that can benefit their stock as well. So that can basically pump up our plays a little bit more. But I think for the plays for Apple, it's going to be a little bit more patience. The patience game is going to win overall. But we can start on Apple with some supports and resistance. So like I said before, man, that 240, 242.5 and that 245 level is what I'm watching. And then after that, 250. If we do start selling off, I'm going to be looking at that 237.5, that 236.5, and then that 235 level. If we break below that, I'm going to be looking at 233.5 to that 231.5 to that 230 level. So you can basically play Apple both ways. But right now, I'm looking at a continuation to the upside and potentially beating these highs right here. And honestly, if we can get past that 240, we could potentially see 245 next, and or it just sells off 240 and we just see it go in a downward trend. But if we do get rate cuts and stuff like that, and especially if Friday's numbers does well, I think Apple can look pretty good. And the thing that I really liked about Apple is like Apple has been holding up pretty strong, especially in the sell off. We did have a bigger sell off on Tuesday, but honestly, it wasn't really a big sell off. We only got down to 227.2. And honestly, man, if you guys got those call options that I announced on X, man, you guys would have made a decent amount of money. I wasn't expecting this much money though, but I was just expecting a little bit, maybe 229 the next day or something like that. But honestly, that one went parabolic. So honestly, I'm still watching Apple in the short term, and I do have it at $200, my average cost. So honestly, that's pumping pretty well. Next, we're gonna look at the SPY. We're honestly like very close to all-time highs once again. So honestly, that 650 is a level to watch, but it's also gonna be a heavy level because every $50 mark is gonna be a good level to watch. If we can break it and or we might get another bounce. I did call off a little put option for 650 when we were gonna bounce. Honestly, that was kind of more of a gamble. But with that being said, it did print pretty well the next day, and I sold it right at market open, unfortunately. But with that being said, man, you could have sold it at that 644, making it $5 in the money, and especially for SPY, man, that could print pretty well. With that being said, the levels that I'm watching today is going to be that 645. If you could break above that, 646.5, 647.5. And finally, that's 650. Unless we get some crazy news or something like that, I don't think we'll get 650. But I think Friday can really determine if those job numbers are good or bad. We can potentially get back to the 650 and or maybe close to it and or even test it. Or if it doesn't really print as people are expecting, we could probably sell off some more, maybe get back down to 640. So some plays to watch, man. Honestly, I think I'm just gonna wait until Friday to play a SPY play. SPY is more of a day trade for me, but sometimes I'll swing trade it depending on how it looks, especially that 650. Honestly, if it lines up well, I'll trade it overnight. But normally SPY is just that day trade that I like to watch, especially when the overall market is falling. You can make a decent amount of money. So that is what I'm watching. Next one is going to be Nvidia. So Nvidia and other chip stocks has been lagging, and we do have Broadcom's earnings that can potentially move Nvidia or not. They're basically competition. But with that being said, man, to the upside, I was gonna watch that 171.5, but we did have a big gap upwards, and we're kind of holding up pretty strong. So I'm gonna see how market opens. If we get a big green or big red, I'm gonna determine my trade off of that because sometimes we get a big red and then sell off, and then it'll come back, and or we get a big green and then that would sell off. And honestly, yeah, that's basically it. But with that being said, I am going to be watching that 172.5, 174, 175.5, and that 177.5. And then to the downside, I am going to be looking at those lows of like 160, 168.5, and then all the way down to like 167.5. If we could break below that, we might be a little bit lower with the NVIDIA overall. But honestly, man, if we zoom out a little bit more, we did have some bad news previously, but honestly, man, it came back pretty strong and pretty fast. But right now, we're kind of seeing slower movements with NVIDIA overall. So honestly, I'm very cautious. We have been getting some bad news overall. Like, their Apple sales, they can't really sell in Apple right now. Or not Apple sales, sorry. Their China sales, they can't really sell in China right now. And honestly, there's some China beef going on. So I'm kind of waiting to see if they'll fix it and or just say we don't really need our China customers. But China customers are coming out saying that they kind of want NVIDIA and need NVIDIA to benefit. So honestly, if we can get some good news with that, I think that can bring NVIDIA up overall. And honestly, just AI in general isn't really looking too good. So honestly, I'm waiting for some better news with that, and maybe we could spike back up to that 180 level and maybe break past some all-time highs with NVIDIA. But honestly, it's all about patience. Next one is Tesla. A lot of people are pumping up Tesla. We had a great day yesterday with Tesla, and we had a sell off towards the end, but Tesla was looking pretty good like midday until we did get that sell off. So if you guys did get into this trade, good job. With that being said, I'm going to be looking for, a little gap back upwards. So we did get that gap upwards, and I'm going to be watching those highs from yesterday, that 343. And if we could break past that, we could potentially get 345 to that 350 level once again. So honestly, that is what I'm watching with Tesla. And or we might just get a sell off, fill the gaps back downwards, and watch the lows of 325. So Tesla, you can make a decent amount of money off of as long as you're on the right side of Tesla overall. Now it's time to talk a little bit more about crypto, because we did have a decent rally with crypto back upwards, but honestly, it's kind of looking like it's stalling again. So Bitcoin isn't really looking too good right now. It might be selling off, and or we might have a little bit of a rally back up. And then the same thing with Ethereum. It honestly looked pretty good, man. But honestly, we kind of fell back down. And honestly, Ethereum just been lagging. Ethereum was that one that was doing better than Bitcoin, and now we're just lagging even more. So honestly, I'm keeping Ethereum on my radar, but right now it doesn't really look too good. So I'm having my patience overall. But honestly, I'm going to be watching that 4,500. And if we can finally break that, because we kind of been testing it, but then falling off of it. If we could break past it, it could look a little bit more bullish. But if we test it again and we kind of just consolidate and we break downwards, that could be a good put option on ETHA. And ETHA is a ETF that moves with Ethereum, and you can make a decent amount of money off this playing some option plays. And then IBIT is a ETF that moves with Bitcoin. You can make a decent amount of money with this one as well. And you guys know the other stocks like MSTR. MSTR is going to move with Bitcoin. We also have Coinbase, ticker symbol COIN. And we also have Robinhood. Robinhood, I kind of feel like that Robinhood moves with the overall crypto market. They basically make money off of buying and selling crypto in general. So I think the overall crypto market hood can move off of that. So we are at like a key level of $100. So I want to see if we can hold above 100 and or break below it. You could probably make a put option on this, especially if we see crypto falling a little bit more. But with that being said, man, good luck trading today. Smash that like button, subscribe, follow me on X, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Good luck.